I'm Peter Cressy.
Hey, Peter.
My question is that I think we're very much aware of Cisco's commitment to the human network, and secondly, your investment in video. But my question is, what in the nature of the video itself, as opposed to voice and data, has you so passionate? What is it about the video that has you so passionate? Because I know you sprinkle it in just about everything you say.
Yes. If you think of the way we communicate, whether it's with our kids, whether it's with our peers, as society, watching a sporting event, it's video. 90% of the loads on networks within 3 years will be video. Video, remote healthcare, video collaboration, every device, all of the devices Cisco's make, from our phones now to our Tandberg sets to the high-end telepresence, the network figures out where does this go, what's your screen size, etc. And you will suddenly be able to not only capture this video, and for those of you who are on the IT side, it isn't about voice and data management, it's going to be about video management in the future, because it isn't just 90% of the loads on the network will be video, 90% plus of the storage will be video. And so your ability to put underneath of it a architecture, we build it off a MediaNet that allows you to search to what are the voice words on there, translate that to any language, and then push it out to your communities of interest. So on each video, you can push it to my data center team, to my security team, like our children do on social networking. We combine the capabilities of YouTube and Facebook into a business architecture with security that allows you to pull upon key resources. It is that power that will usher in the next decade of productivity. And I just use Cisco as a proof point. I talked about revenue per employee being at 22%. Let me talk about it in terms of products. For the first time in our history, our top 12 product lines are all brand new in the last 18 months. And we're gaining market share in most every category. And then, Dean, as you articulate, we're tying them together. And yet at the same time, we came out with 10 new products in the last 6 to 9 months, ranging from telepresence at home, UMe, to a business tablet with telephony combined, in terms of the capability to see us, we call it. It's a business tablet, much like what Apple did in the commercial world, to the ability to do display management. And the point that I'm making is normally we'd do 1 or 2 of those a year. We now are doing 30 of them at the same time. Wow. You talk about productivity and the speed. But videos and collaboration are what underlines our ability to move with that speed. It will be the future. When we're here 10 years from now, you're going to be saying, John, you underestimated what video would do. Probably are going to underestimate it within 3 years. But it is the next frontier. It allows you to deliver healthcare education in a way that your children or your parents understand it. It allows groups to come together where research isn't done in a closet. Isn't that kind of old-fashioned, with a really smart person there? You suddenly get researchers together with electrical capabilities and chalkboards, what GE is doing. They can either, the majority of growth for American companies will be in emerging markets. You either have to hire people there, or you have to bring your talent here to there, either locate them or do it virtually. So GE, when they do their engineering in Azerbaijan and China and India, they do these virtual chat rooms with telepresence, electronic boards, where they have almost all their employees in Western Europe and the US. Huge productivity advantage, but they can be in one country in one meeting, the next country in the next one. Video underlies that. So that's why I get so excited about it. I interrupt.
No. You're really good at making complex things simple. And so your last comment actually creates an opportunity to speak to an issue that I know is on the minds of a lot of folk, but I haven't heard a really good answer, which is, how does the work that you're doing in all of those markets around the world that you just described really benefit people back here?
At first, the emerging markets followed what was done in the US or Western Europe, and usually like 5 to 10 years behind. Now they're 5 to 10 years ahead. And there are 2 ways to do it. You can say, well, all my growth is going to be there, and that's where I'm going to focus. Or you can say, a large part of my growth is going to be there, but I can take what I learned in India or China or Jordan or Russia or Mexico and bring it straight back to the US and Western Europe. We're choosing to do the second. Case in point, in the terrible earthquake that occurred in Sichuan province, we at the request of the state were one of about 7 companies that went in, the first non-Chinese, to see what occurred. It was as bad as you heard. 374,000 people seriously injured. Healthcare system, because it was built in an old world hierarchical system, came tumbling down. West China hospital, 10,000 bed hospital, couldn't even get the people there. Education system completely broke. And when we went in there, we said, rather than try to help rebuild and build it back like it was, generation health education system, and we put in the newest technologies, and the Chinese and the US governments worked together. And interestingly enough, the US government led with business, much like what Secretary Clinton is now doing in the Middle East, leading with business into Jordan and the Muslim states. And as we did that, the Chinese candidly didn't really need our help. They handled this remarkably well. You can imagine this happening in the middle of Appalachia, one road in. You build relationships when organizations are under stress, and that's when you learn about humanity and each other. So I went into Yongchu, and the town looked like it was carpet bombed. 5,000, 15,000 people dead. When you hold children who don't have parents, it commits you forever. And so we put in these new technologies, and we did it so rapidly and quick where the government blew away all the regulations. Well, what do we do with them now? We bring them straight back to the U.S. So we did it in the state of California with the healthcare system, with the universities, and with the governor, and put them across California. We take the concepts and put it into Michigan with President Obama's support on how do you take communications. We're looking at how you might do this in healthcare in remote areas, et cetera, within it. So you take what you learn and you make it better on a global basis, but it requires a very quick interaction. Everybody in the world wants to be like America still. We've got to say, how do we do what we do best on, which is how do we do innovation and benefit other people in the world, but also bring its benefits back. So to answer it, it's one-to-one correlation. You know how we do healthcare at Cisco? Exactly like we do it in China. I usually don't leave the employees. We provide a lot of the services remotely on it, and we're usually in the top 10 places to work in almost any country in the world. Doing the right thing, good for business.
Great. Is there one final question from the audience? Just one in the back.
Hi, my name is Monica Fitzgerald, and I work at GSA. And my question has to do including everyone, and I guess it brings up the question of accessibility. We've talked about sustainability and security, and all those things are so important, yes. But how do we create an IT infrastructure? How, from your position, do you work to make sure that everyone is going to have that opportunity to take part in this whole video and collaborative environment if they can't hear or they can't see?
Yes.
Just to name a few.
This is where government and business, I think, has to work much tighter together. And I think the #1 goals, whether you're in India, Mexico, US, UK, should be the same. It ought to be broadband to every citizen at an affordable cost with at least 2 technology options. That ought to be the overriding objective. Don't get tangled up in the politics of a net neutrality issue.
Right.
You're not getting no wireless capability, doesn't care. And you've got to say, how do you make that happen? Then there are very, very logical issues the government should provide. 25% perhaps of the load should be completely dedicated to whoever wants to use it. But if you're trying to get build-outs, you've got to allow the service providers to get a return on their investment, because if they don't get a return, they aren't going to build out. And sometimes the unintended consequences of what we do end up hurting the country, rather than saying, how do you do the and? So I think there in this country and around the world, when you talk to the president of Rwanda in Africa, he's doing it across his country. You talk to King Abdullah in Jordan, he will provide remote health care, and he just committed 2 months ago to do it in partnership with us across his whole country to every citizen. You talk about education, government leaders thinking out of the box on how to do it, but the key for all of them is how do you get accessibility. Those are the highways, those are the interstate highways of the future. When people talk about stimulating the economy and they say, let's rebuild the highway system. The highway system needs to be rebuilt. but it won't create the multiplier effect. When the original interstates were built, they created places to go. They created the hotels, the businesses, the commutes, which had a multiplier effect of 5 or 10 to 1 for each job you created in the core. You created that much more. Government leaders get that. And so I do think the biggest challenge, if you look at successful countries in the future, it will be education, how well they do infrastructure broadband, how well they do innovation, how well you have supportive government, and how groups which have never really worked together suddenly do work together.
Right.
Long-winded way of saying technology is not our problem here. It's government policy working with business in a way that can be a win-win. And realize every side has legitimate concerns. Lock people up in a room and say, go figure out how to solve it.
It's a good way to, John.
Using Cisco telecommunications.
Pete and AFFIRM came up with the perfect name for this series because it really fits you, which is a visionary. Thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
been a great
Thank
conversation.
you very much. Very good to talk.
I, of course, just want to thank, of course, John and Dean for a provocative, informative, entertaining discussion. I feel good about kicking this event off, and hopefully the bar's been set, in other words, so it's pretty darn high for our next event. But your thoughtful insights and innovative perspectives are clearly infectious, you know, from a personal standpoint, and I hope that it resonates with my fellow colleagues in the public sector. I want to give a shout out to folks who helped spearhead this event. Alan Balutis from Cisco, Bronco Prometica, eGlobal Tech, the good folks at PMR, our support group, Potomac Management Resources, and of course Cisco for making this happen. I mean, all that logistical stuff that goes on has to happen, and actually getting John and Dean really was more the easy part. It was just timing that worked out, but there was a lot of work that went into that. So again, thanks for coming out, all you folks in government. I hope something you took away from this will be something you can bring back to the office. We have upcoming events at AFFIRM, October 29, Gulf Oil Crisis. It's a luncheon at the Hamilton Crown, Communications and Lessons Learned. We have our Turkey Trot Golf Tournament at River Creek on November 1st, and then we have an Innovations in Government Breakfast on November 18th. And for those of you who haven't registered for ELC, Ken Allen, my buddy, said if you can just plug it, it's Sunday through Tuesday of next week if you haven't registered. But most importantly, thank you, John and Dean. This was really, really phenomenal discussion. And
Great.
thanks for
Thank
kicking
you.
it off for us.
Thank you. Are you comfortable voting that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. More than comfortable. Great, thanks.
Saturdays, landmark Supreme Court cases on C-SPAN radio.
Conduct of the students essentially was this, that at Christmas time in 1965, they decided that they would wear